Live, and let's see what happens.
Great. It's gonna be fun. And I know we'll dive into a bunch of answers, which is even better. That's even better than fun.
And I think that, you know, I find that the questions asked kind of help to sharpen your own understanding as well. So that's pretty good. Get some good stuff.
That's 100% why I posted in the group and a couple of other groups. And I'm just like, I'm just kind of looking for answers. Like there's nothing out there. This is all trial by error. And if we're all doing trial by error, this is gonna be great.
Exactly. Cool. Well, we are live. Guys, welcome. This is Depesh Mandalia, founder of the BPM Method. And I'm here with Curt, who's the founder of the Belt Method, is it? Or the Belt? Yeah,
the Belt Method. Yep, sitting right here. Absolutely.
So 2 methods in one house. What more can you ask for? So we're on this call, on this live call, to discuss domain verification. And it's something which, as Facebook always do, they don't really explain properly how to set it up and what to do. And you know, I think you posted in the group a few days ago, and in the Facebook Ads Experts Academy group, and obviously a few other places as well, just to try and get some information on what's going on. And I thought it was quite interesting because some of the comments were good, some of them kind of misunderstood what was being asked, and some, you know, a lot of people actually were like, you know, what I really hate is they put the F there and say follow. You can actually just turn alert notifications on. But anyway, but this is a big problem that a lot of people are facing, which is, you know, what do you do with conversion events? What does domain verification mean? How do you do it and stuff like that? We have a free guide that will be landing on exactly how we do it, but there are still some confusions. And I think your use case is really an interesting one. So I'll let you kind of do a quick intro on yourself, but it'd be good to kind of talk about the issue that you came across.
Yeah, I've actually just documented this. One of the things I love about being an entrepreneur is it's like you raise your hand with a question and someone's like, would you like to have a presentation and conversation about it? And I don't like to just show up and I love the conversation, but like I got to have some visuals so I can help other people while I'm helping myself at the same time. So real briefly, my name's Curt Maly. I live in Austin, Texas. The background you see here is actually where we met in Fiji with Kat Howe. I teach a methodology that really it's where leading with content first, and then where you can, you know, lead with your funnels essentially. So I've had an ad agency for the last 10 years and teach ad agency owners, freelancers, everything in between. I love this stuff, so we can talk about it all day long. So what my goal was is I was running ads on Friday night. And as I was running conversion ads on Friday night, I went to make a conversion ad and something just didn't look right. I knew I had to do the domain verification, so that made sense. I went through the next couple of steps, which I'm going to show you in this PowerPoint presentation. And here, you know, stop and interrupt me at any time if you have any questions. This is totally open discussion. And what I found, what I ran into was an issue, which was a bug, but it also led down a deeper hole of like, uh-oh, what should I do next? So I started to Google and research, and there's nothing really out there. So I posted inside of the groups to kind of see if we can kind of figure it out. So let me show you my screen here. Would you mind giving me permission to share my screen here for just a moment?
I just wanted to give people a reference as to the message that a lot of people will see around the domain itself, which Kurt's talking about. So I'll let you share your screen. There you go.
There we go. Let me hit, there we go. Okay. So here's essentially what I had posted in the group, which is just to dive in very quickly into it. You can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. So essentially what this is, you know, identifies the pixel at the bottom. Essentially, these are now web events. So what happens is I go to run an ad, which I'll walk through this here in a second. I go to run an ad and it basically says the domain that I selected isn't verified, even though it was absolutely verified. So just to start from the top, and I'm happy to give these sections to you that I can send you as an email or whatever, but the links for supporting documentations here. Buffer had a great article, which I believe somebody in the group posted. So there's a couple of screenshots here. So basically it explains, you know, what's the domain verification, fight all the fake news, whatnot. It actually dives in a lot deeper. You can read in the article. Facebook has a really easy video to set this up if you haven't done it yet. There's a link that you can set up the domain verification. And here essentially are the steps, which I'll walk through just to make sure everyone's on the same page and it helps tell the story. So we log into our business center, we click on domain and safety, and now it's going to give us 3 different options, right? So we're going to add a domain, and here's where it's kind of the training and then the question comes in. So I'm just going to give you an example of one of my domains. 3 different ways to verify it, right? We can either do DNS certification, which means, so this is where I'm going to need some help because I do not speak the tech speak, because my partner, he helps me deal with all of this. But with this is a 72-hour delay.
Yeah.
And when I first saw this as an option, I kind of freaked out, like, oh my goodness, I can't just run ads anytime that I want. And I really got to dive in deep with this with clients. Well, then we have the HTML upload, which we just need access to the website's root folder. Sometimes even saying that to a client or just trading it, I know freaks people out, which is kind of worrisome. And then of course the meta tag verification that can happen right away. Someone had said, I have a question for you here. Someone had said that with subroot domains, and I know we'll get into this later, but you can create a homepage to put the meta tag information and it kind of supersedes that subdomain. Does that make sense, or am I saying that right?
So when it comes to domain verification, it doesn't matter what the subdomain is. It's only the top domain that Facebook care about.
So I thought,
yeah.
Right. So that kind of leads to the next point. So by the way, so you verify the domain, right? We're going to assign my fan pages over or your pages, fan page, I guess is a very old term. Domain access, who can edit my ads. Great, I got that all set up. So the domain is verified. We've signed over partners if we want to do that, which I want to talk about this option.
And also, just to go back a few slides, if you don't mind, on the 3 options for domain verification, just to explain, like the DNS verification is a 100% techie job. Like no client, no business owner, no, even many Facebook ads people won't know what to do. So this is like, however, this is more permanent. So when you make this change, it will sit on your domain server like GoDaddy or whoever you use for your domains. The advantage is it's less likely to be accidentally deleted, because if you go down the easier route, which is the meta tag verification, the last option, which is what we prefer to do because it's faster. Like for example, if you have access to Shopify, you can just add that into the code. You've got access to ClickFunnels, to WordPress. You can just drop that in the code and it's very easy. But equally, it's very easy for someone to move it away, delete it, update templates and stuff like that. So it can be overwritten as well. So just be careful about that option.
Great
the
feedback.
HTML file upload, again, it's an easy option. Just stick that onto your server or somewhere. Still needs a bit of techie setup. So Facebook giving you 3 options. Just bear that in mind. Meta tags probably the easiest and what most people will use. But if you want to, especially working with clients, and if they have a tech team or a tech person, DNS verification, although it takes a bit of time, it's the one that's less likely to be overridden and screw you up later on as well.
That's great feedback. Absolutely, that is great feedback. So here's where it gets a little interesting. Assign over pages, like I said, feel free to interrupt me at any time. This was rather new to me. So I thought that this is interesting for domain access on anyone who can edit and add links. So I thought that if I clicked on deny specific advertisers from editing links, I don't know, for some reason I thought that, okay, now third-party people can't edit my pixel, whatever. What I can say for a definite, if I click on either 2 of these boxes, all of my ads get disapproved because I don't have the rights to publish my own link. So I'd love to ask you this as well. This is above my pay grade. I don't know why any other client or we would choose any of these other 2 options right here at this point in time for when we're running ads. Thoughts?
I honestly, this is the first time I've seen this screen and option,
right?
So I don't know what Facebook are trying to do here. It might be that what they're intending to do is you might have certain advertisers on your account that have access to edit your ad account and in your page, and maybe you want to limit domain access. That's the only thing I can think of. For example, if you're a business owner and you have senior and junior media buyers, or if you're an agency owner and you've got certain people that you don't want to give domain level access to, but it doesn't make sense why it's here and not maybe at the user level in Business Manager where you can actually set user rights. So I have no idea what Facebook are trying to do with this. It just looks confusing.
Oh yeah, I hit lots of buttons and found out it was very confusing. So I want to go to the sharing partner access in a minute, because I think this loops around and tells the story here in a little bit different. So really what led to this whole thing was this subdomain. So for example, Entreport or ClickFunnels pages, and again, I might not use the right label, so feel free to interrupt me at any of this, but essentially what happens is this. So Friday night, we're like, okay, well, we have these subdomain pages that we've been using for a specific funnel. I think we can go ahead and verify this. So It shows up because I believe that we uploaded the meta tag. I believe that's what it, no, not the meta tag. Sorry, my partner added in a third option, but essentially here's what ends up happening. I go in, and anytime that you have a new domain, you come into aggravated event management, right? Click on configure events. Now, here's the interesting thing. So here are two domains that I've verified. So Social Media Ad Genius and the Belt.live. Now, there's a time delay in this that I don't understand. So for Social Media Ad Genius, number one is I'm going to be able to select my events. Makes perfect sense. Now, a couple of things to talk about events to be really specific and to get some help on. Number one, we have to go from highest priority to lowest priority, which can cause some confusion I want to ask you about, but that's in 2 slides. The first thing is this one right here. So any edits to the priority, turn off ads, that's what I read from in here, and the measurement will be picked up over 48 hours. So that means any adjustments in any of our pixel priority changes the reporting, or sorry, pauses ads to wait for reporting to catch up. Do you read the same thing?
Once it's once iOS 14 is released, then yes. So not in fact, just FYI, I found out yesterday and updated our own iOS 14 guide. The App Tracking Transparency Framework, ATT, is apparently launching in version 14.5, which is going to be around springtime. So what that means is all the panic and all the prep work we're doing right now, the major parts of it we're doing to lay the foundations, but once Apple make their changes, then everything has to be in place. So just as an FYI, because there is some confusion, there are some people saying, well, iOS 14 is already out, and why are we not seeing the impact? It's because the specific framework is not going out until 14.5. The reason I say that is because it says once Apple begins enforcing its ATT, i.e. in 14.5/spring, then this will come into effect. So that's 72-hour delay plus ad sets and ads being paused. And this is why you have to get this in place ASAP, and you have to agree your priority now before ATT comes in place. I mean, to be honest, like once you've got the priorities, you shouldn't really need to change it. I don't think anyway. Maybe there's a use case for it.
Thank you for the setup, sir. That's the next question. Okay, so let's say we're running webinar leads, and then it's going to lead down to complete registration. Let's just say that's for the the next part in the funnel, and then let's just say a purchase. Well, from everything that I understand right here, which brings up another question, is Facebook may report back just one conversion event. So I want leads to get into a webinar, but I also want to track purchases. So is my highest priority leads, so I can attract leads and then purchases.
Yeah,
right?
So, for e-commerce, it's simple. You'd always have purchase at the top, and then you'd have payment info, initiate checkout, add to cart. But this is a really interesting question, and something which we haven't tackled either for our own digital products, because what's going to happen in iOS 14, once ATT is out, if someone opts out of tracking, Facebook can still track one conversion event. And so this is a real valid use case. Which is your priority? Now, the only thing I would say, and this is my understanding, and happy to be challenged, is I would go conversion at the top, because what Facebook does is if that event does not exist, it will then go to the next event in that list to say, did this fire? So in that way, I do conversion, complete reg, lead. So if purchase happens, you'll get recorded a purchase, but you won't see lead or reg. If reg happens, you won't see lead. If lead happens, great. So that's the way I would see the priority, is the top one is the most important one for you.
Now, that's really good. That's really good. So the second one comes down to an interesting time delay, that there's a bug. So I set up my second URL. So this is the second one that I verified, just took us a little bit longer for whatever reason. When I jumped in to verify the domain, I was only, for the first 48 hours, I was only able to set up custom conversions because it was my second domain. There's some weird time delay. I wasn't able to actually access my pixel to set up the event prioritization, if that makes sense.
Okay. That's
like, it seems like it takes like 72 hours to, like, if we went to the DNS route, and it seems like it takes 24 to 48 hours to have some of this fill in. It's not like we create a custom audience that we go right into the ad set. There's some weird delay. So I thought that there were even more errors, which it's just a delay.
And to be fair, and I think you pointed this out on the post, Facebook have still got bugs in their system. So whatever we're seeing right now, whether it's a delay or something weird, something that doesn't make sense, it could be that Facebook are potentially rushing things through. Now, look, bear in mind, Apple announced this back in June 2020. We're now in, what, February 2021. Time has passed, and I think that Facebook sat on this hoping that maybe Apple would reverse it, or something would happen. And I think it almost feels like they're panicking at the moment, and they're really rushing things through. So because of that,
Absolutely.
I think errors will happen. We saw it on the 19th when Facebook made a change to attribution, and we lost our stats in Ads Manager. That unfortunately is going to continue. And Facebook is such a beast of a system. You have different teams working on different things. They don't always communicate. They don't always properly test everything out. So it could be a delay just because code, or it could be a delay because of something behind the scenes we don't know about as well.
It's one of those things I always tell people inside of our agency and we train others. And I'm like, we actually never ask the question, why? Why did Facebook do this? It creates this weird open loop. What specifically happened? That's the only thing that we can control. This didn't happen, so we have to try this. And it's just, or wait 24 to 48 hours to see what happens next, because they're just a ton of bugs. So that's what I wanted to mention is, as you set up these custom conversions and you set up your other links, it may take 24, 48 hours to have everything validate and just keep refreshing, which leads to another point. This all really comes down to this. So I want to run an opt-in to a webinar, for example. So here's my custom conversion in the pixel. We've done this before. What's the conversion event we want to optimize for? Many times when you choose this conversion event at first, it will say that you don't have access to the domain, or it'll produce a weird error and it's delayed for 24 to 48 hours. So you will have access, but it'll say, like, for example, like it used to be where you would say, hey, I want to add to cart, and it would say, hey, we haven't seen any pixel events here. You had to refresh the page, you get one pixel event. This can take 24 to 48 hours, I guess, to go through the domain, whatever, or it's just a bug.
So one thing I would say on that is what I've noticed, it depends on the volume of traffic to the site, to the funnel. So if you've got a brand new funnel, then chances are it's going to take longer, because I think what happens is if you don't have data, Facebook sends a bot. And when that bot gets data, when it's sent, I don't know. But I've noticed it on sites that have a good amount of volume, it's a lot faster to come up with the option to select the event.
That's interesting, because what I hear you saying is if I would refresh my page like an incognito, it would send a one-time event. But with this, for example, I was running YouTube, some Google, some other stuff. So I quickly had some traffic on the page, and you're right, it did get verified quicker. That's really interesting. Well, essentially what should happen is this, just like what your pixel looks like, right? This will say, hey, this is your domain that you're going to run to for my custom event. What prompted everything, and then I have two more questions, was this right here. This was the bug. This was, hey, I'm optimizing for event. I know the subdomain, or I know the domain is registered, it's verified. I've gone through all the processes I just outlined here, and this still happens. So one or two things are going to happen. Actually, two or three things are going to happen. If there's something that's set up wrong, Facebook won't allow you to submit the ad. If I don't remember exactly what I did as I submitted it, it got disapproved, but usually what will happen is you just click that little button when you go to submit that says push for submissions or whatever. That will usually push it on through, and then there's no other issues. So as long as it published, it seems to work out fine. But this was the other, like, when we really got down to it was, well, wait a minute, we run everything on like these subdomains, for example, and it wasn't hard to switch some stuff. But the big question came to this is, like, we verified this, and I don't remember how, but when I go to web event configurations, now I go to Entreport, I don't own it. Yeah. So like with ClickFunnels, like if you and I were working on a project as a client, of course I'm going to get you to verify the domain, but like I'm not going to call ClickFunnels or Entreport, and then is this, like, that was the big question, is this the solution? I'm really confused when I get stuck on this part. So is this what fixes it?
So the thing about the subdomains is this is a problem, because imagine how many people, taking ClickFunnels as an example, and even WordPress, you can have a public WordPress.com URL that is not your own domain. You can't contact these companies and say, hey, can I add you in my business manager? It's not happening. So the only
Right.
thing you can do is to create your own custom domain that sits on top of that. I think that's the only solution. So for example, Sam
Mhm.
Cart and other websites out there, when you send traffic to them and you've got your pixel on that, on those domains, you're going to have a problem. And that either means you find a way to have your own domain and have, I think behind the scenes with DNS, you can do some clever stuff so that if a domain hits a particular URL, like, samcart.com, you can have yours showing. Technically, I don't know how to implement that. I don't even know if that would solve the problem, but verifying domain is one thing, which is the, like, Entreport, it looks like they've verified their domain. So that's first thing. Entreport.net obviously have not. So it's the same company, just a different URL.
Mhm.
That means that the events for Entreport.com will be working fine for them, but unless they add you as a partner, you can't use that URL. And in one way, it's going to impact so many people. Like, imagine affiliates.
Yeah.
Affiliates often have their pixels installed on third parties, and you can have one website, mynewproduct.com, and you've got 20 pixels installed and 20 affiliates are sending traffic. That's not happening anymore unless you can get this
Right.
domain stuff done. So I think a lot of people are going to be absolutely bowled over. Like, the whole reason I wrote that iOS 14 guide is
Yeah.
I looked at it and I thought, if I can't understand this, and I think I'm pretty good with Facebook advertising and technical stuff, there's what, 10 million advertisers out there, whatever the latest
Yeah.
number is. How are people going to figure this out? Like, I
Yeah.
would love for Facebook to come forward and have a weekly webinar and talk exactly about what's going on, give us insights and stuff, but they're not. And it's because they're
Yeah.
so fragmented inside Facebook. And I feel sorry for reps. I know reps get a hard time, and my rep's no good. They don't. Reps get frustrated as well, because as much as we might complain we don't get info, reps also don't get as much as they should.
Yeah.
So where do you
Yeah.
go? And I think these kind of conversations help, but we are still figuring it out. Like, I don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers. We'll try our best. Like, I don't know what happens in this case. So what do you do about Entreport? Maybe, I don't know. Like, I'd love to know what the
Well,
actual answer is.
so Sam Cart's a perfect example. I've known the guys from Sam Cart since they built the company. We've run a lot of money through Sam Cart personally. So we were setting this up the other day and we're like, oh, we could call the guys, but wait a minute, our pixel has to go on the other side. And that's the way, I don't think we can really mask it like we would do with Entreport or ClickFunnels. So then we're like, well, now do we have to just do everything on Entreport? Now we can't use all of a sudden Sam Cart. And on the other side, like for us, like I said, is our strategy is I like to lead with content top of funnel. So I'm not dependent with just one funnel. That means in the middle of my funnel, I'm running a couple of my offers with a couple of other third-party offers that help supplement my stuff. Not able to do that whatsoever anymore. And it's really interesting.
And the thing is, I believe you can still send the traffic to Samcart. You just can't fire any events back. And that's going to be crazy. Like Samcart, Kajabi, Thinkific, all these sites where people need to install their pixels to see what's happening on the other side. It's going to be a complete disaster. I don't know why Facebook have made this so difficult. I honestly feel, and happy for someone at Facebook to tell me otherwise, that Facebook are not properly interpreting ATT. I know it's a bold claim for me to say so, but I think Facebook are going above and beyond what's actually required by Apple. I think certain things they've taken a bit too far in terms of not tracking. So for example, if someone's on the iOS device and they've opted out of iOS tracking, for me, that's where the boundary stops. If they now go to a website, that's outside of Apple's world.
Absolutely.
But why are Facebook also including that as an exclude? Like that for me, it doesn't make sense. And I think that's something where Facebook are trying to maybe go a bit further to make sure they don't do something wrong. But ultimately, it should only impact iOS 14 tracking. If someone says, right, I'm opting out of iOS 14 tracking or whatever it is, and you go to a website and you're in Chrome, you should be tracked because Google allow you to. And unless you've got cookie blockers, it's outside of Apple's world. So yeah, I think certain things like that do concern me as well.
Like I said, I jumped in the other day on Friday night. All this kind of change starts happening. I start to Google. There's nothing out there. Posted a bunch of different groups, and I see some accounts this isn't fully rolled out to. It's just really interesting because I think, in my personal opinion, I don't know about yourself, but like as I'm running ads, it's pretty quick and pretty easy to go. not what we're talking about here. Like, I'm not setting up a funnel on a Friday night and getting it running through the weekend, or a client has a 24-hour idea flash sale.
Absolutely.
It's not going to work with this kind of stuff for the most part.
That's right. Just having a quick look at the questions, if there's anything that we can answer. Appreciate you guys joining the live, by the way. Maninda said, where do you find this
slides in the group?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So Maninda said, where do you find the option for domain verification?
So domain verification is going to be inside of your, I just had this up. Let me get this back up. Let me share my screen here for just a second. This is why I took some screenshots, because that is much just as visual. So first thing is again, I'll post these links in the Facebook Live once we get done. But domain verification, Buffer has a really great article here. And then Facebook here. So Facebook verifying domains and Business Manager, I'll post that link in there too. But basically what's going to happen is here. So you go to Business Manager, Business Settings, Brand Safety, and Add. So just to give you a visual, it looks like this. It's going to be on your left-hand side, Domains, and then you're going to click that blue button that says Add at the top. And then you're going to add the domain and then go through the verification process that we just went through there.
Cool. Emily says, so you need to be a partner on a client's BM to run their ads. So it's not necessarily to run their ads, but you won't get any events back. So obviously events are important and you want to be able to track them. So you need to make sure that the clients, here's the thing, if you're an agency, you need access to that client's ad account anyway. So you're going to be sharing their ad account as a partner. I 100% don't recommend you run ads on your own accounts for clients. So just make sure you are sharing, and as part of that, that client needs to make sure that they've verified their domain following exactly what Curt showed as well. Let's see what else we've got. So Lorraine says, my client's domain isn't verified yet. Had the same error message, allowed me to publish anyway. Is it tracking conversions at the moment? We're using ClickFunnels in Calendly, but I assume this will stop when it's fully rolled out in the spring. What's your thoughts on that?
I would agree. Like, I feel pretty much what you had said before. It's kind of interesting, by the way. In some groups, people are like, oh my goodness, OIS is affecting me so much. It hasn't really been rolled out yet. So it's kind of interesting how it's affecting you, right? My thought would be is pretty much what you said before, is I think this is a preemptive strike with Facebook. I think everything will work accordingly like it has before, just with different labels. And then I think some reporting will start to fall off, which is, real quick question for you on that. I'd love your opinion on this. So in my opinion, or I don't know, I'm really curious, this new iOS update, this doesn't get rolled out to every single platform out there that's Apple. And I know there are a lot of people who are still using iPhone 6s, 7s, 8s, not even at 10 or 11s. That's right. Does this roll back to like an iPhone 6? Is this a small problem, or is this like a huge problem as soon as it gets rolled out from data degradation?
Good question. So I looked into this actually. So iOS 13 was launched back end of 2019. It didn't hit, I think, 60 or 70% adoption until about September, October last year. So you've got, if you're basing it on that, so who's going to get iOS 14? People that upgrade their existing device or people that buy new devices. So they're the only two options. So basing it on that, first of all, when will we hit some kind of critical mass of enough people on iOS 14?
Absolutely.
I think that will come like August, give or take. When will we start to see the impact? Hey, it's going to be right before Q4, like the worst time for any advertisers. So I think that's what I'm looking at is, yes, in spring, there's going to be an impact on your ads manager, your reporting, your data, etc. But it really depends on how many people are opting out. There was a stat where a company surveyed 2,000 Apple users, and 35% said they'd agree to opt in. So 65% said, I don't want tracking.
I saw that.
And then of that, they said, well, actually, if it helps to make the content better, then yeah, I'd consider it. So then 59% said, yeah, we'll opt in. A lot of this is going to depend on the marketing around this. So if Facebook convinced enough users to say you should allow tracking and this is why, then great. I think I'd be looking at like 30% opt-in, if that, you know. So there's, are there enough people, and then are there enough people opting out and opting in? So there's so many things that need to come in. But I would say to most people, do all the prep work now. Follow all the guides and Facebook, and I'll try my best to keep up to date with those kind of things as well. But the impact, and you know, it's funny you said people are seeing the impact already. You don't know what the impact's going to be until iOS is properly being
long
rolled
time
out
after.
and so that's kind of what I'd be looking at as well. Question.
It is interesting. Go ahead.
No, go on.
I did a 22-minute video on this, which is kind of my take, because I love to teach ethical propaganda. What does Apple really want out of this? Apple doesn't have an ad platform. Wait a minute, Apple has a lot of data. It's not that they're protecting everyone from Facebook.
100%.
Great propaganda message. You're creating a new ad platform that lots of other people are going to start to use because they don't get the same data they used to on Facebook, but they can get that on Apple. Oh, it's an ad platform play. Oh. When I look at it through that lens, oh my goodness, this makes a lot of sense. Taking away, you know, what really has been Facebook's linchpin, in my personal opinion. We've all gotten kind of lazy because this conversion pixel turns on $50 CPAs, not actually what's happening in the funnel. So happy to answer any questions. This is interesting propaganda.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Question then from Jen, can you clarify the priority of which Facebook events to choose? I'm product-based e-com, so trying to understand if I should pick purchase. So just to clarify, you've got 8 slots. So you've got 8 options to select events. For e-commerce, I believe it's fairly straightforward if you're using standard events. So at the top, your main priority should be purchase, then payment info, initiate checkout, add to cart, view content. You might want to add search as well. So they're the basic events that you'll have fired up. If you are, and this is an FYI for a lot of people that don't understand, if you use purchase, and if you use value optimization, there'll be a tick box for you to tick that.
Right
if
here.
You use it, it uses up 4 slots. So just bear that in mind, that if you use value optimization right now, 4 of your 8 slots will be gone. So you just need to make a decision on that. So like I said, prioritize it based on the main pixel event that's most important to you. And that only applies if someone opts out of tracking on iOS 14.
Great distinction.
Then what happens is Facebook can still fire one event, and it will look at your priority to say, if this event happens, then we'll fire this. If not, then we'll look at the second item, the third item, the fourth item, etc.
Good distinction, absolutely.
I
did notice, by the way, as I was setting this up and kind of playing with it and figuring out, like, is this domain verification? Is that right? Is it an error? Essentially, what I mentioned before is there'll be a couple of delays. So sometimes you might just have to refresh your screen a couple of times. It makes just a huge difference as you're running through it. There's just, I guess, moral of the story, a lot of bugs in the system at this point.
That's it. Stockton says, just to clarify, custom conversions count as one of your 8 events. They do indeed.
Yes.
Yep. So Wally says, if webinar, what should we optimize for? So if you go back maybe 30 minutes on this call, we did actually cover that. So I think Kurt's got the slide on that, but you can,
here.
You know, the same applies, I think. You go for the pixel event that's the most important. You put that at the top. Because if that doesn't fire, Facebook will then look at the next event and say, right, did this fire? If not, it will look at the next event, etc.
See, for me, because my thought process was like with this, is my highest priority if I'm doing webinar would be leads, because I want as many leads as possible. And bottom of funnel, I'm still going to optimize for add to cart. Even I'll do some like reach campaigns, you know, bottom of funnel, because I know they're highly qualified. But I rather have the lead report. I'm still going to get, in my opinion, I'm still going to get purchases. They're still going to show up in my merch count. I'm just not going to be able to track them as well here, but I want all my leads to optimize on the front end. Would that make sense? Or does that sound right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because the thing is, it's down to what you're optimizing for. Because if lead optimization is the most important thing for you, and you know you then convert through webinar and call and other means, then you know you may not be using the purchase pixel event, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's fine as well. Just if lead is the most important thing, then put that at the top. Yeah. And also one thing to bear in mind, and this is something we're keeping in the back of our pocket, is you might end up splitting your targeting between iOS 14 and non-iOS 14 users. So that actually you can be aware in your ads report that these campaigns here are going to be very different from what's on Android. So in theory, Android should still report everything. So that's just something to bear in mind as well when it comes to setting up your campaigns in the next kind of 3 to 6 months, is at least for mobile, splitting out by operating system. So Yaha says, recently all our website visitors using iPhone were updated to iOS 14. So just to reiterate, it's not iOS 14. As far as I've seen, it's iOS 14.5 where the changes are going to happen. So just as a heads up.
think I just got pushed on my phone 14.3. So
Ooh,
like you
getting
said,
close.
0.5, yeah, 0.3 was supposed to be low last night. So 0.5 coming out in the spring makes logical sense.
Yeah, and this is a moving target because 14.5 is later than I think Apple planned. I think, and reading between the lines, they kind of did this because Facebook were appealing to have a bit more time. So just, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they'll delay it again. Maybe they'll enforce it as planned. So we'll see.
I still like to remind people, this is not law. Like, this is someone that literally could be like, oh, no, the public doesn't like this anymore from the early adopters. We should just get rid of it. Like, it could change. I'm not saying it will, but it's not law. Like, users demand this, right? It's kind of like when credit cards first came out, people are like, who would use one of those stupid things? That doesn't make any sense. Takes off. Or there's other horrible ideas that we could talk through all day long. We just don't know until it starts to roll out. Google Glasses, perfect example. Look how amazing it's going to be. No, not really. Same thing with Snapchat glasses. They were great for like 5 minutes, but not by market demand. So you never know what's going to happen.
Totally. Well, listen, Curt, thanks for joining me. It was a really good convo. Keep me updated, especially on the Entreport thing. That's going to be really fascinating to see how you get that resolved, and Samcart as well. So yeah, we're all on this learning journey together.
At the end of the day, with Entreport and ClickFunnels, you just have to have your mask. I'm saying the wrong label, but mask the domain, like you had said.
That's right.
But I don't know about Samcart, and I don't know about a lot of these clients that, as you said, like they don't necessarily have the technical ability, or a lot of people, as you've been in the same space, a lot of people are using these third-party solutions because they're just easy to put up. Now we're surpassing easy, which makes it really a concerning effort. So thanks for your insight here, and this has been really good. Thank you very, very much.
Cool. All right. Well, good stuff, guys. Hopefully that was useful for you guys. If you do have comments that went unanswered, if I didn't see them, we'll try and come back in the comments and answer those as well. But otherwise, go and check out the iOS 14 guide on my website. I can't remember the exact URL, depeshmandalia.com/blog. And just keep the conversation going in the groups. And ultimately, there's no one that knows the exact answers, but we'll try and work together as best as we can to answer as many as we can as well. So, Curt, thanks again. Have a good day, and thanks everyone for joining us. Awesome.
Take care.
Cheers.
All right. Bye.